All right, so we have a special guest on tonight. His name is Cam Insimone. He is a student at URI. He's been involved with many things in the athletic program there. Also announces the URI basketball games, URI football, and pretty much every sport URI. And also was working at WPRI 12 in Rhode Island in the sports department there. And he does have a documentary. It's out right now. Check it out on YouTube. We're going to tease where you can find that on YouTube in just a moment. It's by Dan Mazzulla. For people that don't know who Dan Mazzulla was, it's Joe Mazzulla, the head of the Boston Celtics. His father was a big-time Rhode Island guy. Went to Bryant University, played there, and also was very big in Johnston High School. Did a lot of basketball coaching, played overseas also. So we're not going to ramble too much into this, Cam, but that documentary is called Coach. You can find it on YouTube. We're going to, again, tease throughout the interview more about this interview. But, Cam, thanks so much for coming on. Greatly appreciate this.
Oh, thanks, Rob. I appreciate you for having me. It means a lot.
All right, so let's kick this around, Cam. Tell us a little bit about yourself. We do know that you are at URI, University of Rhode Island, for people that are not listening in the Rhode Island, New England area. That's what URI stands for. You have done so many things in the athletic department there. But just give the audience a little bit of a taste more about what you've done and what you're into.
Yeah, so like you mentioned, I mean, it kind of sparked from Dan growing up in Johnston. I mean, I was in youth sports since I was a little kid. So, and being able to be coached by Dan for 7 years in basketball, really grew my passion for the sport. And, after high school, grew my passion for broadcasting. So, my senior year was the COVID year. So, my senior year of high school at Johnston. So I didn't get a graduation like every students are this year and the past years and stuff like that. But freshman year, I went to Rhode Island College for people that don't know, in Providence, Rhode Island, and that was a tough year too because everything was online. So I didn't get a lot of experience down on campus and things like that. So after that, once things started to open up, I get to do more things with broadcasting. So Rick opened the door for myself to start streaming, like you said, basketball, every kind of sport down at college at the Division III level. Now I transferred to URI, and so the rest is kind of history. I'm doing all the ESPN Plus stuff, and but mainly, yeah, just going back to like my youth, Dan, and all the coaches that I've been able to be coached by. That kind of just sparked my passion for basketball, which is my favorite sport, and my dad too, and my family just pushing me to be great every day. So yeah, kind of just sparking from the youth in Johnston, Rhode Island. Yeah.
So let's talk about the broadcasting field. As you stated, and so did I. In general, you're involved with many, many sports. You've announced every sport that you can pretty much think of. Can you talk about that? Because there's a difference between playing and announcing. Some people that were former athletes are good broadcasters, and others are not, and they're very, very boring to listen to. So talk about your journey so far. Obviously, it's still going on in broadcasting.
Yeah, I think the thing that I took in the most and the thing that I wanted to learn the most was how to find my own voice, right? The way, like you said, some people are boring, some people are high energy. I tried to find that that good medium. So I'm like, not too crazy, but I'm like, right in the middle. And obviously it takes reps. So doing it over and over and over again, that, helps you find your voice, like I said. And getting into it was tough. I knew the sport of basketball just growing up, so I figured that would be, the easiest one to cover. And that's my dream, is to one day be an NBA broadcaster. But the other sports that I wasn't too equipped to, like soccer or like lacrosse and things like that, was more tough. But again, like I said, it's just reps. Getting to know the people that did it before you, getting to know them, how they kind of did it. I'll shout out Stone Freeman. He's a broadcaster down at URI. He helped me with like spot charts on how to, if a game's going on, how to look down, like look at someone's name or look at a certain stat, bring up stats, and things like that. So I would just say just reps, just doing it over and over again is how you get better, and how you find yourself as a broadcaster.
Can you talk about the first time, whatever sport it may be, jumping into that box and putting on those headphones, whether it was on TV or on radio in general? You knew a lot of people were going to be listening to this, and not to mess up. Talk about that first time, because as a person that's done radio and also TV, and also even done sports games in general. During college, I played soccer, announced women's soccer games when I wasn't playing in general. And, if you don't have a lot of knowledge of the game, it is extremely hard. And, different games, you have to be quiet at certain times. You're not supposed to be quiet, say different things. But in general, talk about the first time with the audience, if you could.
Yeah, so my first opportunity I got was at Rick, and I got to do public address. So I was like the in arena voice for I think it was men's basketball. And I host my own podcast as well called Cam's Corner. So I probably did about, I want to say maybe like 15 episodes prior to that, and just being able to talk with some people, and knowing that I had this opportunity coming up, I tried to practice kind of how I would do things. And if people watch my podcast, they know that in high school I was a big corner three shooter for basketball, and that was my hot spot, was the corner three. So I brought that passion for that shot. I brought that to public address. So when someone hit a corner three, I'd make like a big deal out of it, and the players loved it, the coaches loved it. So it was a little nervous at first, because once somebody scored, I was like, oh, I got to say something. Like, I have to, I'm the PA guy. I gotta bring this to life. But my first broadcasting opportunity was, like you said, it's like you don't know when to really say something or when not to say something, because at Rick, it's not like a big arena, because, like I said, it's a Division III school. So everybody can kind of hear me. As the Division I level at URI, you're in the Ryan Center. You're in a big arena, and it's so loud in there, so people can't hear you unless you're on the air, right? So if someone's at the free throw line at Rick, it's dead quiet. So I'm the one, I can hear myself talking, and then I can hear or see people looking at me, and it's like, it was my first time. I was kind of scared and nervous, and I didn't really know how to go about it. But like I said before, it's just reps. Just keep doing it and doing it and doing it, and I found my rhythm.
What about doing these games that, like you said, you weren't a soccer guy, lacrosse guy, didn't have as much knowledge of those games? What about going into that box, announcing those games? Because again, like you said, you didn't have that kind of knowledge.
Yeah, you say sometimes, for me at least, I would say some of the wrong things, like the wrong terms, and I would feel like people were like looking at me, but they knew that I was young and I was a student, and I'm just trying to learn. So, I'm glad I got the opportunity to do it at a Division III level, because not to like knock on a Division III level at all, because every level of college sports is competitive, but there's fewer people like watching on a streaming service, because all the games were streamed on goanchorman.com, which is where Rick streams all their sports. With URI, it's on ESPN. It's more like, I guess, more, there's more opportunities to see that, I guess, in a way, but there's less people watching for me at my first opportunity. So not that I wanted to mess up, because there wasn't a lot of people watching, but I wanted to do the best I could. I wanted to perfect my craft in whatever sport I did. So the first few times doing it and not saying the right thing, or not even speaking for a few minutes at a time, it was tough, but I got the hang of it. And I definitely didn't want to, I realized early I didn't want to do those sports, like, in the future, but you got to you have to say yes to every opportunity, because that's how you get better.
We will continue on. So I just want to talk and go into the prep. So when you're prepping for these games, how do you start? Because you're announcing teams, especially with URI, a lot of these teams you might have never seen before. It's hard to pronounce a lot of these guys' names sometimes, whether they're foreign or US born in general. How do you prep? How long does it take you? What do you do to make sure you get all this right while you're on air?
Yeah, so Rick was a lot different, but I'll speak on what I know now and what I've done at URI, because it's a little bit more professional. But so for me, going into it as a junior, this was my first year at URI. I transferred after 2 years at Rick, and again, something like Stone Freeman helped me in figuring out how to make spot charts, and how to make it easy for myself to, like, if I have to look down at a player or look down at a stat, it's like right in front of me. It's not like I know everything off the top of my head. A lot of people think, like, how do you know all these players' names? How do you know what they did 3 years ago? It's like, well, I do research the week prior. So, say like last year, URI's home opener for basketball was against Quinnipiac. I didn't know any players on Quinnipiac. Yeah, obviously I don't go to the school. I'm not a fan of the team. So that prior week, I was so excited to get the first call of the year. And I knew I was going to be a color analyst because the schedules come out a couple months prior. And again, me being a basketball player, like a basketball like freak, like that's my thing. Like I know the game, so I'm not nervous on how to call certain plays because I can break down a play. But if I see somebody on the opposing team make a play, and if that's like their signature move, like a fadeaway from like the elbow or something like that, you got to know that prior. So going into it, having those notes, having those things from a couple seasons prior, you can tell how those players are doing, and things like that, game trends, how the team's been doing overall. And for like an example, for like the home opener, you can say how they did the year prior or, the year prior to that and things like that. So I guess spot charts, I kind of looked them up, just looking up templates on, websites, what works for me and breaking each one down and just kind of having it all in front of me in an organized fashion that, fits for me.
As we continue on into the interview, when you were prepping for all these sports, because you've announced, pretty much every sport in the kitchen sink, what was the hardest to prep for? Is it basketball or is it other sports that you didn't know well?
Yeah, definitely the harder sports. One that I've had to prepare for. I'd probably say volleyball. Volleyball is definitely a tough one. I mean, there's not a lot of things like specific things that go into volleyball, but either that one, either volleyball or soccer, I'd probably say, because I didn't call too many lacrosse games at Rick. I probably called like one, and by that point, I didn't really know much about spot charts and how to prepare. So, but yeah, I'd probably say either volleyball or soccer. Yeah.
But now at URI, you're just specifically doing basketball. Are you playing around with football or any other sports, or just basketball and that's it?
So this past year, I wanted to do everything just to get my name out
Okay.
there, and that's why I did every sport. But this year, I'm going to be a digital correspondent for football, which is I'll be the sideline reporter for GoRody.com. So it's like right after the games, I'll tweet out like a 2-minute sports package on the game, and I'll live tweet throughout the game. Um, and I did that last year as well. This year, I'll do that, and I'll do basketball. Aiming for play-by-play, and I'll probably do a couple color commentary games as well.
I want to ask you this audience question. Somebody said to ask you, I should say, what do you believe that you need to work on specifically as an announcer?
Ooh, that's a good question. I don't know. I don't think I've ever been asked that. Personally, myself, I would just say just continue to be a student of everything. Just continue to learn from everybody that's done it before me, and just trying to get better every day. Because I'm not perfect, and I know nobody else is perfect. None of us are perfect, but just trying to perfect my craft the best I can. I think that's what I try to do every single day, whether it's broadcasting or being a podcaster, or anything else that I do. Just trying to figure out other tactics to get better. My voice is definitely one thing I try to perfect, and not trying to slur over my words. I'd probably say that sometimes where there's those gray areas where you want to say something but you really shouldn't, or you stumble over a word, or you have those filler words like or like probably like fixing that, just kind of making it flow throughout. And there's gonna be broadcasts where that happens. Everyone's human, so probably that, just trying to cut down on those filler words and just kind of making everything flow. And I think I've done a good job up to this point.
Two more audience questions before we dive deeper into Coach, that documentary you did on Dan Mazzulla in just a second. I do want to dive into this question. Someone did ask, when you're announcing the game, obviously Rhodey had a tough year last year in basketball. When you're announcing these games and, they're struggling, maybe they're getting blown out, how do you make sure that you don't say the wrong thing that might get someone in the athletic department very mad at you if you're brutally honest of what's happening in the game?
Yeah, you got to address that the team's not playing well, right? But in the sense where it's not so much of a biased statement, right? So I don't want to be like, oh, URI is losing again, like this is that or whatever, But you got to kind of, people that aren't like too familiar with it, you got to kind of play both sides. So I'll give another example with that Quinnipiac game. If Quinnipiac has a big like it was down to the wire that game. So if they hit a bucket, or if URI hits and they're just going back and forth, you got to bring that same energy to both sides. Obviously, everybody watching knows that you're a URI broadcaster because it's a home broadcast. But you have to bring the same amount of energy that you bring to URI to Quinnipiac or whatever the opposing team is. I called the game over the radio when URI played VCU, and they lost at the buzzer. The kid's name was Zeb Jackson. Hit a buzzer beater. There was like I think 4 seconds or 5 seconds left on the clock, and they had to inbound it from the opposite baseline. So they ran the full length of the court. Kid comes down the court, and I'm calling the play, elbow jumper, and it goes in, and everybody in the arena is silent. So I'm the broadcaster, like for everybody. So the shot goes, and I'm going, it goes, and I'm going nuts. Like it's a buzzer beater, regardless of if it's URI or if it's whatever team it is. And I think that's where again another spot where I can learn to improve is just continue to do that, continue to bring the same energy I bring to the home team as well as the opposing team.
You're going to be doing URI basketball again. You're going to be going to the football games, working for GoRody.com. Let's talk a little bit about these teams. Obviously, URI basketball struggled. URI football is getting a heck of a lot better than they used to be back in the day when you and I were both growing up. Let's talk about these two teams as we move into, again, the coach documentary. What do you feel like, URI basketball will be this year? And then if you want to slide into football, because it is football season, they're about to start this season in just a few days now.
Yeah, I've been down there a few times for with WPRI. So we covered URI football a little bit in the off season in the summer. They look great. I mean, they lost a few veteran seniors, veteran grad students. Somebody that I've been able to talk to a few times was Ed Lee. He played for the Patriots a little bit this offseason. Unfortunately, he was cut a few weeks ago, but just that caliber talent, they had that in a lot of guys, and losing a few obviously hurts, but bringing back Kasim Hill for a 7th year is nuts. But he's got the talent, he's got the ambition and the drive, and I've seen it only in this past year alone. So and Jim Fleming's a great head coach, and he's a great guy. So I think I haven't really been able to touch upon football that much in this past summer, but I think they'll be around the same record as last year. They were just right. They missed playoffs by 1 game, and if they can make a statement this year, that'd be huge for the sport and big for Rhode Island football. But for basketball, they lost like almost the entire roster, so you never know. Right. That's kind of like I would say, but. Exactly, and a few redshirt guys that didn't play last year that looked great in the summer. We're not allowed to go to off-season practices or any practices at all, but being able to, kind of see highlights, I guess, and that's kind of like the most that we can do as broadcasters and reporters for URI, because I know that Coach Miller doesn't like the media in on practices and things like that, which is understandable, in the off-season, but. I mean, it was a tough season for URI last year. I don't think they'll amount to what they were last year. I think they'll be better. They have a lot of new guys coming in, a lot of new young talent. They do have a young team, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
Are you already preparing for, the URI basketball season with all these new guys coming in? It's like a whole different ballgame. You have to learn their rank and their serial number because all these guys are new and you know nothing about these guys.
Yeah, so my friend, shout out Josh Paiva. He's amazing. He's a digital, what is he? He's the media. What's his title? Oh my God, content creator. That's what he is. He's the content creator for the men's team, and he does all like the graphics, and he keeps me up to date with, what's going on really. And in the summer, I have his tweets like notified on my phone, and he would give me a lot of like the who's coming in, who are they looking at, and things like that. So he would kind of feed me that information sometimes. And I try to be active as much as I can on Twitter because that's where all the news is. And seeing the new guys that come in, I haven't really seen or heard a lot of these guys. I know some of them, like one guy, Lewis Courtwright. He played at Quinnipiac, so I know a lot of his game. I know what he's about a little bit. So players like that transfer that you've already covered. That's another thing. Someone like Josh Oduro, who played at George Mason last year, he's now at PC. I grew up a PC fan, Providence College fan. So, friends and family ask me about him. I used to cover him. So when players like that, when they get traded or not traded, it's not the NBA, but or get enter the transfer portal and go to a different school, you kind of already know because you already covered the team that they played for prior. But those new guys that come in, it's tough. You got to really dig deep, especially the freshmen that played at the high school level. But I'm guilty. I haven't really done too much research yet. But with the school year starting up, I should probably get on the high horse and start learning a little bit more. Yeah.
I agree. Cam and Simone, again, it's Cam's Corner podcast. Definitely check it out on YouTube and all your streaming platforms as far as that. And then also you can check out Dan Missoula's documentary that he produced and did. It's called Coach. It's also on YouTube. I want to go into that quickly a little bit as we move towards the end of the interview. When we talk about the documentary, can you talk about Dan Missoula as the man?
Yeah, the man, that's a understatement. He was the greatest. I met him in sixth grade. I was a little short, chubby sixth grader. I didn't really have much of a basketball game at all. So definitely an intimidating person to say the least, if you didn't know him. But, I obviously I got cut the first tryout, and then seventh grade I developed a jump shot. So it kind of sparked my basketball playing career, and just grateful for Dan to notice that. And I didn't really have a relationship with him in seventh grade. I was still kind of a little bit intimidated by him, like, who wasn't at that age. But eighth grade came around, and me and a few of my friends, we kind of started to develop a friendship with him. We could see that he liked our class a lot, the class of 2020. And, once eighth grade was over, we lost in the semifinals. And, we were sad because we were good friends with our principal as well. So we were sad to leave them and Coach Dan. But, luckily over the summer, they got these high school deals, and they ended up moving up to the high school. So our principal from middle school came to Johnson High, and Dan came to Johnson High. And his son Justin was a player at Hendricken, Bishop Hendricken in Warwick, Rhode Island. And so Dan was our JV coach. So me and all my friends that had him in eighth grade, we got to be coached by him when we were freshmen at JV. And he helped out the varsity a lot. He wanted to do JV because he wanted to go see Justin play, because that was his last year. He was a senior at Hendricken. But yeah, you say the man, he was just he walks into a room and you could just feel his presence. You always wanted to impress him. You always wanted to, just show him the utmost respect because, he just taught you so much about discipline and hard work and, how to get better every single day. It's really hard to put into words, but, our friendship just grew and grew over the years. And I figured with this documentary, it was just the best way to, for his final send off, because during COVID, when he passed, it was tough to kind of do things, the right way, and no one really knew what to do, obviously, because of the pandemic. But, premiering this documentary, making this documentary, producing it was definitely, I feel like, a great way to, kind of give him his send off and his flowers.
So he had a very close relationship with obviously his sons and his daughter. Can you talk about that as a person that knew him for quite a long time?
Yeah, not only just his kids, but his family in general. He was a huge family man. The rec and the Johnson rec, the park and everything, that was secondary, but it didn't look like that. That looked like it was his first priority, but his first priority was always his family. He cared deeply about Joe, Justin, and his daughter, Gianna, greatly, and I knew I was more closer with his son, Justin, than Joey, because at the time Joe was at West Virginia, and Gianna too was working with the rec. So I was close with her as well. But, just seeing how we interacted with them and the rest of his family. I was coached by his brother, Anthony, in AAU as well. It was just, it taught me a lot. Everything that he did kind of taught me life lessons to just, really appreciate the things that you have and to get better and work hard at everything. It doesn't have to be basketball. It doesn't have to be work, just everything that you do, just to work hard. And he instilled that in his family, every single day.
What do you hope people learn from the documentary that you did on Dan Missoula?
I just hope they learn who he was, and I hope they can find somebody in their life like Dan and kind of make that correlation, because I feel like everybody should have a Dan Missoula in their life, somebody like a role model that's maybe not a family member, because Dan was like a father figure to all of us. And my dad's the best dad in the world. I have the best mom in the world, the best family. But outside of home, I was with Dan. He was at school sometimes. He was every day after school, after practice, and always willing to, if someone needed a ride home, he'd always be there to give somebody a ride home. Or if we had work, he was our boss. He'd be there. He'd be everywhere. So if people, the one thing that I hope people can take away from the documentary is just to appreciate everything that you have. Learn those life lessons that Dan taught everybody in the documentary, to work hard and, to pursue whatever it is you want to pursue, because um, clearly, like, he left a huge impact on everybody, and especially me, because if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be having this conversation with you. I wouldn't be doing what I do down at URI. And, I think about him every day. So just to have a role model, I hope people can realize that having somebody there for you is very important.
Agreed, 100%. So, Cam, as we go to the end, people can watch the documentary on YouTube. Is that the main spot?
Yeah, up on Cam's Corner's YouTube. Yep, it's right at the top.
Okay, great. And then it's also, if you want to go to the website there, you do have the website, correct? And it's at Cam's Corner, right? The podcast website.
Yeah, it's camscorner.org. Yep, documentary is on there as well.
So what's next for you, Cam? I mean, you're at URI. Obviously, you're doing basketball and football right now. It seems like, as this being your senior year, you do want to move into the realm of working in athletics on whatever level that is. Do you see yourself moving into, back to WPRI, or working in the athletic department at URI or another school around this area? What do you see yourself doing after school ends this year?
Yeah, a lot of people ask me that. A lot of people ask me if I want to go back to the jobs that I had. I worked at the sports hub in Boston
Right.
the summer before this one, and that was my first real job in the industry. And I actually just was talking with the executive producer of Zolak and Bertrand, Tom Morgan. He was the best. He taught me a lot in that industry and how the radio industry works, and the behind the scenes stuff. He just wrote me a letter of recommendation for future jobs. So he's the man. Those people down there were awesome. But yeah, everybody asked me that. They asked me, "Are you going to go back to those jobs? Like, could you ever do that?" And I'm thinking to myself, "Nah. I mean, I don't know if I would ever go back or if I would, but um, those are definitely possibilities,
Yeah,
And
but sports
um,
radio is a lot different, Cam, than you announcing games or working in an athletic department.
exactly, yeah. So for me, going into internships, I wanted to just learn as much as I could about any industry in sports, right? And my main passion is, like we talked about, is broadcasting. So I feel like if I have a lot of things under my belt, it'd be more equipped for me, or somebody. It would be more equipped for somebody to hire me, right? So um, my dream, like I told you before, was to be like an NBA announcer and be a broadcaster for the radio or for TV one day. Um, After school, it's going to be a little tough. I feel like just reaching out to as many people as I can and seeing what opportunities fall my way is probably my best bet. But I'm always going to be proactive and always try to look for those opportunities.
So as we go to the end, again, Cam and Simone, it is Cam's Corner as far as the podcast, and then the documentary on Dan Missoula. Again, that for people that don't know, not in Rhode Island, not in New England, don't know this area that well, Dan Missoula is Joe Missoula, the head coach of the Boston Celtics' dad, big, basketball guy around the New England area. I do want, you to shout out, obviously been, teasing Cam's Corner in general. If you can just tell the audience where they can follow you on social media. Obviously, if we could tease the Cam's Corner, and also the people that you interview on there, if you could tease that out. I know that's a lot, but I'll give you as much time as you need.
Yeah. So you can find me on Instagram. Just it's my name at Cam Iasimone. On for the podcast, you can find me at Cam's One Corner. So Cam's the number one corner on all social media, TikTok, uh, YouTube, everything, Instagram. I'm on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, any kind of podcast that you're streaming off of. You can find me on all of that. And just honestly, shout out to everybody that's been on Cam's Corner, that's been a part of the journey, that's been a guest on the podcast. I just interviewed Sam Knox, who's a reporter at WPRI. He was a great mentor to me over the summer, as well as Maury Hirsch-Gordon and Taylor Beagley down at WPRI. They're the best. A lot of athletes that I've had on too. I'm very grateful. One for Joe Missoula. He was my first ever guest 2 years ago. So the Missoula family has just done a great number on me and just helped me out so much in progressing my career. For not even just to be on a podcast, but just as a sports media person in general, and there's so many players and so many coaches that I could thank, but they're they're following along on the journey, which is great. And I know that some of them reach out to me sometimes still, and it's just great to know that I left a good impression. It's good to know that they're still following me and they're still supporting me. And just a huge thank you to my family as well. My family is probably my number one supporter, as well as all my friends. They think it's so cool what I do, and that's why I do it at the end of the day as well.
Well, my dad actually found you in the Johnston Sunrise, I believe, a little while back. And with that, he said, you got to try to get this kid on and interview him and let him tell his story and talk about that documentary. We did this. This will be going up very soon. Again, people that do not live around the area, sports fan, not a sports fan, it's a very good story in general as far as the documentary. I know we do have a lot of sports fans that do listen to this. So, even if you're not a Rhode Island or New England fan, definitely check out Cam's stuff. You might be able to learn stuff and just learn about different people, places that he's ventured into, and see, as far as that goes, try something new. Even if you don't like the people or a place, just try something new. I'm all open to that. But again, Cam Iasimone, Cam's Corner, definitely check it out. YouTube, Spotify, the list goes on and on as far as those podcasting sites. And check him out on Twitter and YouTube, and also on Instagram. I'm struggling today, Cam, but we'll get through this. I definitely appreciate you coming on. I really hope we can continue this relationship and have you on again down the road.
Rob, thanks for having me. I'm always happy to do anything for a local Rhode Islander as well as myself. So thank you very much for having me.